Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be showing you how to make a classic sweater. The last time I did this stitch combo, I knew how to make a sweater, so here we are. It's cozy, clean cash, a quick workup, and super beginner friendly, so if you're ready to make your first wearable, it's a great place to jump in. Speaking of, whether you're new to the craft or a seasoned vet looking for a challenge, you've come to the right place. We've got hundreds of modern crochet designs for you to create, with even more coming, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so we can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I use a total of 500 grams of yarn, that's 1200 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you have any plans for the new year. Our plans are growing the channel, putting out some new content, and finally getting around to doing that Q&A. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting the sweater started, we're first going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that reaches from the top of our shoulder down to where we want the bottom of the sweater to be. Now I want mine to be just about 20.5 inches or 52 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 80. Now that we have our chain, we're going to get started with our first row for our 4-row repeat. So we're going to start by blocking off that last chain, and then we're going to start with a chain 1. That's going to count as our turning chain, and then a second chain, and that's going to count as a chain. That's going to make more sense in a second. Once we have our 2 extra chains, we're going to be single crocheting into the 4th chain from our hook. So counting that out together, we have 1 and 2, there's 3, and then there's 4. Into that 4th chain, we're going to bring our hook back, into that chain, and then we're going to do a single crochet. So yarn over, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops, and we have just formed our chain space. Now let's do the next stitch. We're going to chain 1, skip that following chain, and then into the chain after that, 1 single crochet, forming our second chain space. Now this is a moss stitch, so we're just going to continue to chain 1, skip the following stitch, and then single crochet into the next, making our way all the way down to the end of this row. So let's do this one more time. Chain 1, skip the next chain, and into the following chain, a single crochet. Continue to do this until you reach the end of the row. So we've made our way all the way to the end of our row with our first moss stitch row. The second row that we have in our 4-row repeat is another moss stitch row, so let's get that started. Getting started on our moss stitch row, we're always going to start with a chain 2. Just like the previous row, that first chain is going to count as our turning chain, and that second chain is going to count as a chain. Once we have those 2, we're going to flip our work, and then we're going to start by skipping that first stitch, and then single crocheting into that chain space that we made from our previous row. So skip 1, into that chain space or that big gap, insert with 1 single crochet, and that is our first chain space. Let's do that again. Chain 1, skip that next stitch, which should be a single crochet, then into that following chain space, 1 single crochet. forming our second chain space. Let's do that again. Chain 1, skip the following stitch, and into the stitch right after, a single crochet, and continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left. So we have made our way all the way down with our second moss stitch row, and now the third row in our 4-row repeat is going to be just a single crochet row. So to get started on our single crochet row, we're going to chain 1 and flip our work. And start by finding that last stitch from our previous row, which should be a single crochet. Insert your hook into there with 1 single crochet, and then find that next stitch from our previous row, which should be a chain space. Just insert your hook into that gap with another single crochet. So just 1 single crochet into every stitch and chain space, making our way all the way down. Now we've just made our way all the way down with our third row, and that is just our single crochet row. Now our last row for our 4-row repeat is going to be a back loop single crochet row with no increases and no decreases as well. So just start with a chain 1, flip our work, and now we're going to find the last stitch from our previous row and insert your hook only into that back loop, and then we're going to single crochet. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch's back loop, insert your hook, and single crochet. And that's it. Continue to put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we have made our way all the way down with our back loop single crochet row, and now all together we should have 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows all finished up. Now for the remainder of this piece, it is going to be this 4-row repeat. So since we're working on the shoulder portion right now, we're going to continue to repeat these 4 rows with no increases and no decreases until we get a shoulder width that starts about 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder, all the way until it reaches the base of our neck, making sure that we meet back right after our back loop single crochet row. Now I'm just going to get started on our row 5 with you guys. I'll let you guys do the rest on your own. So since our first 4 rows are all done, row 5 is going to start with a repeat of our first moss stitch row. So it's going to start with a chain 2. Remembering that that first chain counts as our turning chain, and that second chain counts as a chain. From here we're going to skip that first stitch, and then into that following stitch, do a single crochet. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then single crochet. And that's it. Go ahead and get the shoulder portion all finished up, and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back with my shoulder portion. Now I have a total of 32 rows, and my width is just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters, and now we're going to get started on our neckline. So what we're going to need to do is insert our stitch marker into our even numbered stitch from the top, that's opposite from our working yarn, right where we want our neck hole to start. Now keeping in mind that this does need to be fairly close to the neck, so you want to make sure you're not inserting it too low. So I've just inserted my stitch marker into the 6th stitch from the top, and that's just about 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters. But we are going to have this same gap right here along the back panel as well. But now that all that's out of the way, our next row in our row sequence should be a moss stitch row, since we all should have ended on our back loop single crochet row. So at the end of the row, do a chain 2, flip our work, and then do our moss stitches, making our way all the way up until we reach the last stitch right before our stitch marker. Alright, so we've made our way all the way up with our first moss stitch row for our neckline, all the way until we are 1 stitch right before our stitch marker. And that's it. From here, we're just going to continue on with our 4-row repeat, working our way across our chest over to the other side of the base of our neck. Now we will want to end on our second moss stitch row, and that will be along the bottom. So just do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will show you guys how we're going to do the other side for our shoulder right after that. But from here, just do 2 moss stitch rows, a single crochet row, and then a back loop single crochet row with no increases and no decreases. And I'll meet you back once our neckline is all finished up. Alright, so I am back and I'm all finished up with my neckline, and I now have a total of 58 rows, and my width is now 13.5 inches or 34 centimeters. We all should have ended on our second moss stitch row, so we should have ended along the bottom. So I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to make a chain the same amount of stitches that we skipped along this end. So let's all start by inserting our hook into this top corner stitch. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then from here we're going to start by making a chain the same amount of stitches that we skipped. So if you guys have my numbers, I skipped a total of 6 stitches. So over here I'm going to make a chain of 6. Now that we have our chain, we are going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we're going to be inserting our hook along the bottom, and then we're going to continue on with our rows. So now that our chain is all finished up, we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch, and then continue on with the same row sequence that we've been doing. So since the last row that we ended up with was our second moss stitch row, our following row is going to be a single crochet row, followed by a back loop single crochet row, and then just keep repeating our row sequence for the same amount of rows as our first shoulder portion. And just in case if you guys are wondering, we are doing a chain up of 1 and cut just to make sure that everything is even along all ends. So go ahead and get this shoulder portion all finished up. Once we have the same amount of rows as our other shoulder portion, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I am back and my second shoulder portion is all finished up. I now have a total of 90 rows, and now my total width is about 22 inches or 56 centimeters. And now since we're all done with our front panel, we're actually going to be making another panel for the back that is exactly the same. And then when you have your other panel all finished up, I'll meet you guys back so we can seam the shoulders together. Alright, so now that we have both of our panels all finished up, we're ready to seam our shoulders together. So how we're first going to do that is make sure that the ribbing that we have for both the front and the back panel is faced inwards. And we're doing that because we want the seam to be along the other side. So once we flip it right side out, all of our seams are going to be along the inside. Once we have that, we're going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then we're going to do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now from here, all we're going to do is single crochet, putting 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way across the top of our shoulder portions. So let's get that started. We're going to start by inserting our hook into the first side row that we have into the front panel, and then find that first side row that we have into the back panel, insert your hook into there, and then we're going to single crochet them together. Just like that, let's do the next one. This is my next side row. I'm going to insert my hook into the top of that side row, into the front panel, find the same side row into the back, and then single crochet those together. And that's it. It's just going to be 1 single crochet into every side row. It doesn't matter if it's a moss stitch or a single crochet row. So I'm just going to show you guys once more. So this is my next side row right here. Insert your hook into that top loop into the front panel. Find the same top loop into the back panel, and then single crochet them together. And that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so we are back, and we have just finished up seaming our shoulders, and now we're going to seam our sides. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seams that we have for the shoulders is still along the outside. And then we're going to be inserting our stitch marker into a stitch where we want our armhole to start. So I've inserted my stitch marker into the 26th stitch from the top, and this is just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And now from here, we're going to do a single crochet seam, making our way all the way up. So start by inserting your hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now we're just going to do our single crochet seam. So just to do the first one, we're going to find that first stitch that we have into the front panel and insert our hook into there. And then we're going to find that same stitch into the back panel and then insert our hook into there as well. Now from here, we're going to single crochet them together. And there's our first. Let's do the next one. This is my next stitch that I have into the front panel, so I'm going to insert my hook into there. I'm going to find that next stitch into the back panel, insert my hook into there, and then single crochet them together. And that's it. We're just going to continue to do this until we reach our stitch marker. And when we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that our sides are all seamed up, the next thing we're going to do is start working on our sleeve. So let's start by making sure that our work is now flipped right side out, so the ribbing that we have for both the front and the back panel is along the outside. And then we're going to start by inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam. Insert our yarn onto our hook and pull through. And we're all going to start by making an even number chain the length that we want our sleeve to be, keeping in mind that we will have a cuff as well. So I want my sleeve to be just about 15 inches or 38 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 56. And now that we have our chain, we're going to do our first row in our 4-row repeat, which is going to be a moss stitch row again. So we're going to start by blocking off that last chain. We're going to start with our first chain. That's going to count as our turning chain. We're going to do a second chain, which is going to count as our chain, and then we're going to single crochet into the 4th chain from our hook. So all together, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and 4 chains. Into that 4th chain, insert our hook with 1 single crochet, forming our first chain space, and let's do that again. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and single crochet into the next, forming our second chain space. And we're going to continue to do this until we reach the base. Alright, so we are back, and I just made my way all the way down with my first moss stitch row. Now I do need to connect it into the base. But since we want the same ribbing that we have for the front and back panel for the sleeve as well, we're going to first need to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be slip stitching it into that next available stitch that we have into the base, making sure that we're working counterclockwise or to the right. So since we have this, I'm going to find that next available stitch that I have, making sure that I'm working counterclockwise. I'm going to insert my hook into there with a slip stitch to close off this first row. Now to work our way up to the next row, we are going to need to slip stitch up that next available stitch and chain 1, because our following row that we have is going to be another moss stitch row. And after our chain 1, we're going to single crochet into the first chain space into our sleeve. So we're going to skip over that first stitch and then into that following stitch, which should be our chain space. We're going to insert our hook into that gap with 1 single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, and then into that chain space, another single crochet. So pretty much the same way that we have done the body. I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row. Alright, so at the end of our row 2, and our following row is going to be a single crochet row. So this is going to be the same 4-row repeat as our body. So since we're along the edge, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then just single crochet all the way down. Alright, so we've made our way down with our row 3, or our single crochet row. And now just to remind you guys, our following row, or the 4th row in our 4-row repeat, is going to be a back loop single crochet row. So we're going to start by connecting it into the base first. So insert your hook into that next available stitch. And then to work our way up to the next row, slip stitch up that next stitch and flip our work. And all we're going to do from here is just put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. And that is it. From here on out, it's just going to be a 4-row repeat of the same 4 rows that we just did together, making our way all the way around until we don't have any more stitches left. And we do want to make sure that we're connecting it into the base the same way that we just did together. I'll meet you guys back so that we can seam our sleeve up together and we can work on the cuff. Alright, so I've made my way all the way around my armhole. I don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, and now we're ready to seam everything together. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. And now that our sleeve is flipped wrong side out, we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Yarn over, pull through everything, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now from here, we're going to be single crocheting into both the front and the back panel at the same time, so the same way that we seamed our sides. So let's all start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel, insert your hook. Find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there, and then single crochet them together. There's the first one, let's just do one more. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook. Next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet. And that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Right, so now that our sleeve is all seamed up, the next thing we're going to start working on is our cuff. So start by flipping our work right side out, meaning all of our seams that we have will now be along the inside. And then we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our sleeve. From there, go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 just to secure, and now we're going to be doing a decrease of 2 single crochets into every 2 side rows that we have, so let's get that started. So let's all start by finding our first 2 side rows. Now this is mine right here, which is the side back loop single crochet row, and then a side single crochet row. If yours is a single crochet and a moss stitch or 2 moss stitches, that's completely fine. We're just going to be doing a decrease into those 2 side rows. So start by finding your first, insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through, then find your next side row, insert your hook into there, pull through, and once we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3. That's how we do our decrease. Let's do this again. These are my next 2 side rows, which are 2 moss stitch rows for me. I'm just going to insert my hook into the top of that first moss stitch row, pull through, and then into the top loop of that next moss stitch row, pull through. Once we have those 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And that's it. We're just going to continue to do a decrease of 2 into every set of 2 side rows that we have, make my way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space once we don't have any more side rows left to work into. We have just finished up single crocheting along the bottom of our sleeve, and now we're going to make a chain the length that we want our cuff to be. Now I would like for my cuff to be just about 3 inches or 6 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 13. Now that we have our chain, we are going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook into there. Once we have 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Let's do that again. Into that next chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through everything. And continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. And a really quick tip that I have for you guys when it comes to doing our slip stitches is make sure that we're not tugging on our working yarn too tightly after we finish every stitch. Otherwise the following row is going to be really tough to work into. So I'll meet you guys back at the end of this row. So now that we've made our way all the way down with our first slip stitch row, we now need to connect it into the base. So start by finding that next available stitch that we have into the base. Go ahead and insert your hook into there with a slip stitch. And now this first row is nice and connected. And now we need to work our way up to the next row, so we're just going to find that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch into there, flip our work, and then now we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, so let's get the first few started. We're all going to start by finding that last stitch from our previous row and insert our hook into that back loop. Once we have those 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch, insert your hook only into that back loop, yarn over, pull through, into that next stitch's back loop, yarn over, and pull through. And continue to do this until we reach the end of the row, remembering not to tug too tightly after we finish every stitch. Alright, so we are at the end of our row 2. To get started on a row 3, which is going to be another back loop slip stitch row, just chain 1 since we're along the outside, flip our work, and then make our way down, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. We are going to be connecting it into the base the same way that we just did, but I do want to meet you back at the base just once more to connect it together. Now that we've made our way back down towards the base, find that next available stitch, slip stitch into there to close off this row. Then just to work our way up to the next row, slip stitch up that next stitch, flip our work, and then make your way back down, putting one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And from here, we're just going to keep repeating these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, and then I will meet you back so we can seam our cuff together. Alright, so I've just made my way all the way around with my back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, so now we're going to seam it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that our work is still flipped right side out because this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. Now from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, yarn over, pull through everything, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now from here, we're going to find that first available stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. So go ahead and insert your hook in through the front loop, or the loop that's nearest to us, and then into the back panel, find that first available stitch, and then insert in through that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. And from here we should have 3 loops on our hook, so yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. Now there's our first outside loop slip stitch seam. Let's do this again. Into that next available stitch into the front panel, insert only in through the front loop, and then into that next available stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Let's just do 1 more. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop, and then the next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then when we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we just did here on this side on the other side. Alright, so now that both of our sleeves are all finished up, the next thing we're going to do is our bottom band. So what we're first going to want to do is make sure that our work is still flipped right side out. We're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our piece. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now from here, we're going to need to cinch this bottom up just a little bit, so we're going to be alternating between 1 single crochet and then a decrease of 2 single crochets, so let's just get the first few started. Start by finding our first side row. Now it could be a single crochet, back loop single crochet, or moss stitch row, it really doesn't matter. Just find that top loop into that next row and insert with just 1 single crochet. Now into the following 2 rows that we have, we're going to be doing a decrease, so the same way that we did our cuff. So find that top loop into the next side row, yarn over, pull through, find the top loop into that next side row, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now all together we should have a single crochet, and then a decrease of 2 single crochets, and we're just going to continue to repeat that, so let's do that once more. Find that next top loop, insert your hook into there with 1 single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease of 2 into the next 2 side rows. So into that next top loop, insert your hook with 1 single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and then into the top of that next side row, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left. Slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so now that we have single crocheted along the entirety of the bottom of our piece, we're now going to make a chain the length that we want our bottom band to be. Now I want mine to be just about 4 inches or 10 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 20. And now that we have our chain, we're going to insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, with a slip stitch. So insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through everything, making sure that we're not tugging too tightly after our stitch, and continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we connected our cuff. So start by finding that first available stitch into the base, insert your hook into there with a slip stitch to close off this first row. And then just to work our way up to the next row, slip stitch up that next available stitch, flip our work, and then do a row of back loop slip stitches. So our bottom band is going to be done pretty much the exact same way as our cuff. So at the end of this row, do a chain 1, flip our work, and then put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. And then from there, just keep repeating those 2 rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base. And then I will meet you back so we can seam it together again. Alright, so we have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, and now we're going to seam our piece together. So we just want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel of our bottom band. From there, yarn over, pull through everything, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so the same way that we seam the cuff, so let's just do the first one together since we already know how to do this. Start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel and insert your hook into that front loop. Next, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel and then insert our hook only in through that back loop. And when we have those 3 loops on our hook, all we're going to do is yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. And that's it. Continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so our bottom band is all finished up, and the last thing we're going to have to do together is our collar. So start by making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, and we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along our neckline. And all we're going to do from here is insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to be single crocheting along the entirety of our neck hole. So we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet into every side row, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch, and just maintain that, making our way all the way around. So start by finding that first side row, insert your hook with 1 single crochet. Now it doesn't matter if it was a moss stitch single or back loop single crochet row, we're just going to find that next stitch, whichever one it may be for you, insert your hook into there with a single crochet, and then let's just do 1 more. Find the next side row, find that top loop, and single crochet. Continue to do this, making our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. Alright, so we've made our way all the way around with our first single crochet row for our collar. We have slip stitched into that chain space, and now our next row is going to be a half double crochet row. So that's going to be pretty simple. That's going to start with a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And from here, how we do a half double crochet is yarn over, insert your hook into that next available stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull through. Now once we have those 3 loops on our hook, all we're going to do is yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. That's our half double crochet. Let's do this again. Yarn over, insert your hook into that following stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we have just made our way all the way around with our half double crochet row. I'm going to show you guys how we're going to connect it and just how we're going to get started with the ribbing for our collar. So how we're going to connect our second row is start by counting up 2 chains. So the 2 chains that we made when we started off this row. Here's 1, here's 2. Into that second chain, you're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and pull through everything with a slip stitch. Just like that. And now for the ribbing for our collar, we're going to be doing front and back post double crochets, so let's get that started together. So getting started on our row 3, we're going to do a chain 2, and then from here we're going to yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. We're all going to start by finding that first half double crochet from our previous row, not counting our chain 2. So find that first half double crochet, and then we're going to be working our hook underneath the body of this half double crochet and through the other side to do our front post double crochet. So to get this started, we're going to bring our hook down and then underneath the body and through the other side of that first half double crochet. Now once we have that, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and then when we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to double crochet per usual. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now there's our first front post double crochet. Our following stitch is going to be a back post double crochet, so let's get that one started. That's going to start with a yarn over as well, and then our hook is going to go underneath our work and then over the body of that next half double crochet. So start by bringing our hook underneath our work. We're going to bring our hook up and through that next gap, and then over the next half double crochet and through the other gap. So we're going to bring our hook over, into the next gap, and through. Now once we have that, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and once we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to double crochet per usual again. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now all together we should have 1 front post and 1 back post double crochet. That's going to be the stitch sequence, making our way all the way around, so let's just do the next set together once more. We're going to start with a front post double crochet, so yarn over, we're going to find the next half double crochet from our previous row, and bring our hook down. Insert your hook in through that gap, underneath that half double crochet, and then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then a back post. So yarn over, bring our hook underneath our work, up through the next gap, and then over that next half double crochet. And then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And that's it. From here, all we're going to do is 1 front post double crochet, and then a back post double crochet, making our way all the way around. We are going to slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we will be all done with our collar. Alright, so I've made my way all the way around with my front and back post double crochets, and we are all done. The last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!